Our speaker, Susan Ford, she is the Director of Graduate Admissions. And we have two of our students, I'm hoping, recent graduates. Marquise Stewart, who just graduated. He will be attending Florida International University for Student Affairs. And Zahir Abraham, who is attending Fordham for Political Science. Oh, I can't remember. You can tell me, Zahir, what you're studying.
I'm studying humanitarian studies.
Humanitarian studies, yes. I'm sorry, I correct myself. So I know right now, and the reason we brought this in is often students, especially freshmen, you're thinking, oh my God, I've been in school forever. I just want these 4 years over so I can get a job. But sometimes students don't realize that they need to go to graduate school. And sometimes we forget what we want to do. We start out something with our freshman year, we're going to do this, and then we get to our junior year and our mind has changed. And it may be that you need to go to graduate school. So this is not saying you're going to graduate school start. These are some tips about what you can do. Marquise and Zuhair can probably give some tips about some things they've done or their experiences as undergraduates and what they were thinking when they started the whole graduate experience. So I'll turn it over to Susan. I'm going to mute myself and then we can go from there. So thank you.
Okay, well, I didn't, because I wanted to see all your faces, I didn't put a PowerPoint together, but I have my notes over here. I sent some of them to Ken last night, just to keep me from going completely off the rails, which I'm prone to do. But first of all, I kind of wanted to get an idea of the audience. So I know I've got Ken, and now I know I've got a couple of alums that are soon to head off to graduate school. So I guess I wanted to, how many freshmen do we have? You have a freshman?
Yep, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 7 with us right now.
Okay.
Why don't you guys introduce yourself really quickly yet again? But this is a good thing, learning to introduce yourself. If you go on job interviews, you will spend the entire time introducing yourself. So consider it good practice. So introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, and your major, and we'll go from there. And I meant to do that, but I forgot to. So we'll start with Diana.
Okay, hi. My name is Diana. I live in the Bronx, New York, and I'm planning on majoring in biology this fall.
Biology, okay. Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm from Queens, and I'm hoping to major in art, specifically graphic. Okay,
my husband and I both grew up in Queens. And that's where we're headed later today. We're going to see his mom in Queens, in Flushing. Okay, Mel.
Hi, I'm Mel. I'm from upstate New York, and I plan on majoring in philosophy and religious studies.
All right. Next, Nicole.
Nicole's a current student. So I've got Randy he's from Brooklyn and he's majoring in international business management.
Okay.
So let's go to Dante.
Hi, my name is Dante. I'm from Washington, D.C. I am majoring in arts and entertainment management with a minor in sports marketing.
Okay.
Sully.
Hi, my name is Sully. I'm from DC and I'm getting a BFA in acting.
Jamita.
Hi, my name is Jamita. I'm from New Jersey and I'm going to be majoring in bio.
Okay, and I'll let Marquise introduce himself and then Zuhair, and then we'll go from there.
Haven't introduced myself in a while. I am from Long Island, New York. I'm with the class of 2020 with Zuhair. I came in as a marketing major. I switched kind of that concentration a few times. And then I ended up with a marketing minor and a human resource management major. And I'm going for higher education administration for my master's.
And where are you going to be doing that?
In Miami and
In Miami.
Florida International University.
Okay, all right. We just launched a higher ed master's at Pace. It's going to start in
Great.
September. Yep, it's
Ah.
fully online.
Very exciting.
Yep. Okay. Did we get everybody?
Zuhair, let's have her introduce herself, and then we've got everybody.
All right.
Okay. I'm Zuhair. I just graduated from Pace with a BA in political science and history. I'm going to Fordham to get my master's in humanitarian studies. And I kind of switched around a couple times figuring out grad school, what I wanted to do, but I got there.
All right. Well, anyway, so I guess to the new grads that are joining us and moving on, congratulations and good luck. To the new students who we've got on board, congratulations on getting started here. And actually, I even think a little bit of what I'm going to say may even work for those of you who are heading out, to grad school too. But actually, I'm really glad that most of you are on the very front end of your journey. I did academic advisement for many, many years of undergraduate students before I got involved with the grown-up students with graduate school and things. And, the preparation and the things that happen right now really have a correlation a direct correlation to the opportunities you're going to have when it comes to graduate school. So that the study habits that you create right now, the networks that you build, and things like that really will have a lot to do with the ease and the success of getting into graduate school later. Obviously there are graduate programs like undergrad, some are more competitive than others. But the first thing I always tell students when I meet with them, and whether they be undergraduate or now graduate students, please ask for help if you need it. The university has a tremendous amount of resources, and I do understand sometimes we've moved offices around and we've relocated, and now we're virtual. We may take a few minutes to find us, but when something, any kind of an issue, or you have a question, it doesn't even have to be a problem, you have a question, get help. Maybe don't even wait for help. Build your network, because you don't want to have to play makeup later on if you don't have to. All right. So anyway, so the most important thing to prep for grad school is to be academically prepared. It doesn't necessarily mean quality prepared, quality in terms of your work. You need to take your English courses, your math courses, and you want to make sure that you've really gotten as much as you possibly can out of all of those courses, because as you move through your program, you're going to hone in on what your major is going to be, and that's going to be part of the decision making for graduate school. So that's part of it. Now, when you move a little bit further, you've made your decision, what your major is going to be. Then you have to kind of make the decision as to whether or not I'm going to continue right through to graduate school from undergrad, or whether I'm going to take a break and I'm going to work for a while, get a better idea of what I want my career trajectory to be. And that will depend upon the program you go through. Now, one of you here, I think, is a bio major. I wouldn't be surprised that you end up preparing, graduate study may very well be in your immediate future afterward, for advanced study. And you may be thinking about, pre-med, you may be thinking about something else in allied health, physician assistant studies. We have bio majors that go on to become PAs. We have them that go on to become nurses, nurse practitioners, and things like that. We have folks that they get involved in research. Here at Pace, we have forensic science. We have students that take their bio majors and move into forensic science and get involved in pathology and things like that. So you kind of need to think about, picking the correct major as you're moving forward. but you need to get faculty advice. It's really, really important that you speak to your faculty.
Susan froze up. There we go.
Yeah.
You froze up there for a second. Yep, it looks like we're good.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, you have to continue with grad school, right away, or whether you're going to take a little bit of a break, or you're going to do any internships along the way. So career services, the grad admission office, you can come and talk to me anytime you want. Your faculty are very important. Academic advisement, your academic advisors are very important. Then when you get a little bit further on, you have to think about the real nitty gritty. And this is where you can kind of start thinking now. I'm a real fan of journaling. And I think if you get yourself a little hard-covered notebook, be old-fashioned, or or you could do it, on your computer if you want. But there's something about that little notebook that you can carry with you. But as thoughts, if you think about something, if it's a career, or if it's something that you think would give you fodder for a personal statement that you might need to write for a graduate application. If you start thinking about those things now, writing down little ideas, believe it or not, by the time it gets to application time, you've already got a lot of information. And guess what? That can also help you if you're going to write a letter for a job and when you're going to put your resume together. Okay? So I think starting your little black book right now with some of your thoughts and what your goals and aspirations are, it's a really good thing. And go back and reread it every so often. But that will help you prepare, because when it's time to start looking at graduate schools, you have to do your research. And your research, obviously everybody uses the internet, the graduate school guides, which are online. I don't know, any of you used Peterson's when you were doing undergrad or anything like that. Those still exist, and they exist for graduate school. Again, you start looking at location. Location is really important. And then I think you have to think about what your transcript looks like and how that's going to translate in terms of being viewed by an admission officer and an admission committee. You're always going to be asked to write at least one personal statement. That's part of why I asked you to think about journaling. Some schools will give you very specific questions that they want you to answer, depending upon the program you're applying to. So those are all things you want to take a look at applications, ahead of time, so that you can think about how you're going to answer the questions. You should start looking, I would say, in your junior year is usually when the serious look is going to start. I would say start doing your research at the beginning of the junior year. I think a spreadsheet is a really good thing. You start your spreadsheet and you put your school on the left, and then you start with, okay, this is the application deadline. These are they want two personal statements, they want 2 references, they want this transcript, they want that, they want the standardized test. More and more schools are moving away from the graduate record examination or the graduate management admission test, but not all. We still require for some of our programs those exams, so that especially if you're a person that has exam anxiety and things like that, you should really be starting to think about those things now. And guess what? Sometimes just familiarity with the exam and lots of practice starting early will make a big difference in that. If you're somebody who needed, some accommodations, make sure that all of your paperwork is up to date with that, so that those things are available when you take your standardized tests, and you should definitely use them when you're applying to graduate school. If exams are required, if you can, if you can get time and a half, or you can get, extra time, or a different type of a test environment, well, then you should take advantage of that. But make sure that your paperwork is up to date and still valid and things like that. And things, but that's another column. But I always say, don't, start looking at them now, or beginning of your junior year at the latest. Start looking at the exams, look at past test questions and things like that. This way, believe it or not, it'll actually make some of your academic work make sense, because you'll see, oh, look at that, in a math class, I've got this, and that's going to show up on this exam that I have, or some of the English questions, and some of, if you do the Miller analogy test, not too many people do it, but that's one of the other exams out there that sometimes is asked for. And that's apples to oranges, is walnuts or to peanuts, that kind of a test, and stuff. And you have to worry about your finances. You really have to think about your financial aid, and that's why I think it's really important that you're very cognizant now. Some of you are financing yourself, some of you are sharing it with your parents and things, but it really behooves you to get really deep down in the weeds in terms of, what your finances are and what they are now, and begin to think about your financial plan moving forward, and to take advantage of things. We have financial literacy counselors here at the office, at PACE, and, Regina Robinson, and Daryl. I can't remember Daryl's last name now.
Daryl and Regina will be here next week.
Okay, so pick their brain, get to know them, visit them in their office, because the more planning you do now, the better shape you're in for graduate school or for life. The more you've got planned and taken care of now. And there are all kinds of things that you can find out about, that you can utilize, that you can, let your folks know if they're helping you out, let your folks know about them, payment plans. Those are really great things. They really help with the balloon interest at the end, if you manage them, the right way, and things. But those are the things that you need to think about. I mean, most of you are really early on. So I guess if I were to make it really sort of summarize the whole thing, pay attention to your academics right now. It's important. Make sure if you have that you get help, and that you've got a good network of faculty and advisors to work with you. Don't forget to start your research, and your research should start maybe in your junior year, a little bit earlier. I think if you're going into like a healthcare profession, probably a little bit earlier than that, because science prerequisites and things like that are really, really important. And you don't want to have to be playing catch up at the end with that. You research with all of your programs, geography, where you want to, where you'd like to be located, what programs. Begin to journal and get your thoughts down on a piece of paper. Visit career services for help with creating a resume, because even applying for graduate schools, you need a resume, and cover letters and things like that. Oops, excuse me. Hang on.
Well, Susan deals with the phone. Marquise and Zuhair, why don't you start? First, my first question to both of you: did you plan to go to graduate school when you were in the same position these students are?
Yes.
Sorry, Susan, I muted you, but we're talking. So, Marquise, you did plan to go to graduate school. What about you, Zuhair?
No, I originally planned for law school and then switched to grad school.
Okay. So when you were planning, did you plan, since you planned law school, Marquise, were you, so you both chance, Marquise, did you plan on going to graduate school for higher education?
Well, not specifically for higher education, but I really wanted my MBA. And I was even thinking of the 5-year or the 1-year program for MBA at Pace at that time. So I knew I wanted to get some type of higher degree for my bachelor.
Okay. And what about you, Zuhair? Well, you were thinking law school, and then it changed. Why don't we, because your story is really interesting. I'm trying that because I know this story. So why don't you talk about your story? Because Zuhair's is really a great, both of their stories are really great, but hers is, because it's such a dramatic shift.
So I originally planned to go to law school, and I took the LSATs and I did well. So it wasn't like the fear of the LSATs. It was just like, how am I gonna afford this? Do I really want to be a lawyer anymore? Like, I want to work in public policy. Like, I want to do like peace working and conflict studies. Like, that's what I wanted to do. And it took me taking the LSATs and like taking a break away from like school and everything last summer for me to be like, yeah, I really don't want to be a lawyer anymore. And then like Ken was like, so why don't you get your master's? And I was like, that makes sense. So then I pushed off taking the GRE until February of this year. Somehow crushed in my applications on time. Yeah, I feel like I made it less dramatic, but it was a lot of going back and forth and emailing with Ken and confusing myself and then making deadlines at the last second and writing a personal statement in like 2 days. But I'm going to grad school.
I do not recommend writing your personal statement in 2 days. I'm going to say that now. If it was up to me, I would tell you to start your personal statements today for 4 years from now.
Well, I said 4 years. You should start journaling 4 years ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Okay, Marquise, tell us a little bit about your going from a 5-year combined bachelor's, master's to, go a higher or an MBA, and then going to higher ed administration. How did that journey occur?
Yeah, so like I said, I wanted to get my MBA. In the time, I wanted to be a professor down the line. I don't know, that was just in my head. And I just felt like I might as well just go for it. It's 1 extra year. Pace was already giving a bunch of scholarships, so I felt it was comfortable in terms of the financial aspect. But at that time, when we were able to do things in person, I started to do more research on like the top 10 MBA programs. So I guess even though I wanted to stay at Pace, we are surrounded by NYU and Columbia and other schools like that. So I started to look into other schools. Ultimately, I started traveling to different programs. So I went down to Atlanta for Emory. I went to another state to visit. And I just felt like the MBA, at least right now, wasn't what I thought was the best time to get. I thought I should get more work experience and then go. But I felt like if I was going to start working, then I did not want to go back to school, because even though I like school, I like the setting of it, I don't think all the projects and the teamwork sometimes and the extracurriculars, it was just a little bit too much for me. So I think I made the switch probably junior year, and I started asking people probably sophomore year about their experiences with grad school, whether it's MBA or for higher education, because I knew I wanted to, I guess by my job was working with student support services, I wanted to work with students. Sorry about the text. I wanted to work with
I'm looking at my phone, I'm like, wait, where is it?
That gives everyone anxiety. Sorry about that, if you're an iPhone user. But then I decided to ask them about their journey. So I think that you should definitely use your resources in terms of who's already in the program. Like, I believe Diana said that you wanted to do biology. I know a lot of biology majors who from their freshman year were like asking their seniors what the process was. So don't be afraid to reach out, and even to us, like reach out if you're interested in what maybe a high degree may be. I think it's good to at least have it as an option. It may not be the option. You may really just want to go work, but I think you should always have option B, option C. Look at coronavirus now. We had to definitely move things around. So definitely be flexible with whatever your goals are. Stop texting above. Sorry, just ignore that if you hear it. So I think that I settled down on higher education because of my networks within Pace, and they inspired me. So then I went off and I feel like it's a funny story when I went through it, but it's not as funny as you hear. It was a lot of work for the last.
These are both abridged versions.
So I have to ask Marquis a question.
Yeah.
You're going to go for the master's in higher ed. Do you have an idea of where you'd like to focus? You know, what area or what arm of higher ed you're thinking about focusing on?
Yeah. So I've always participated in diversity programs or equitable programs for students from high school to college. So my first job, I actually had a package where I can go to a school and have a graduate assistantship, and I have tuition remission, so I don't pay like the full tuition, which is
Right.
a package you should all look into. Let them pay you is what my motto was for grad school. But I will be working in LGBTQ initiatives. Just like how I worked in student support services, I wanted to work with underserved communities.
Okay, all right.
So that you just brought up, Susan touched upon it, and Marquise mentioned it, and I'll ask Zahira about it. I hope this doesn't backfire, but you know, one of the important things is thinking about funding graduate school. And Zahira talked about law school. Law schools generally do not fund their graduate students. And here we go. Here's Mr. Rudra, who took a year off. I'll let him explain this story when he gets it. But Zahira, are you being funded at Fordham?
By funded, do you mean by like a scholarship? Because
are you getting scholarships, GA, tuition remission, or are you just buying the full loan?
No, I'm not taking out a loan for grad school. That's nuts. They're paying about 98% of my tuition for the next year and a half because the program's only 3 semesters long. So yeah, they're paying like 90%. I think I have to pay like $1,000 out of pocket, which I can afford to take out from my savings. But yeah, all the other schools were like the school in London that I applied to said take out like 10 to 20 grand, and then Columbia and NYU deferred me to 2021 because they didn't have space in this class, and American and Howard gave me basically like no aid. So
yep. So that's how it is. So this is one of those things. If you're thinking grad school is going to be expensive, you are never going to talk to anybody who advises you to graduate school, with the exceptions of maybe med school and law school. Some of those specialize. You should be looking at schools that will fund you. Now I'm going to let our recent arrival, Rudra, introduce himself. Some of you may be familiar with Rudra. He is the literal poster boy for student support services. He also worked in admissions. So Rudra, why don't you introduce yourself and, you know, tell us where you're going, what you're doing, and so on and so forth.
Hi, I'm Rudra. I graduated in PACE back in 2019. I majored in biochemistry, and now I'm currently looking to start my graduate studies at the University of Southern California. I am pursuing a PhD program in chemical biology, but it was a tough process to kind of get to that point in like wanting to pursue my PhD, but definitely I had a lot of support from Ken and a lot of other faculty members at PACE in helping me do so. I forgot, what else did you say?
Well, no, you know, you took a year off. Maybe you can, you know, because Marquise and Zahira are going straight in. Talk about why did you take a year off? Why did you make that decision? And what it was like prepping for graduate school in that time period?
Well, for me, I ended up taking a year off of school because I didn't plan my time accordingly. It's about like a 1-year like process that you have to go through to apply for graduate schools in terms of like taking standardized testing and then also like filling out the application requirements and stuff like that. So I should have applied my junior year, but I ended up waiting to my senior year to apply. So there was a little bit of like time difference there. Or like I should have applied the beginning of my senior year, so the fall semester. That way for the next fall semester I would have got accepted, but I ended up waiting until I graduated, and then I was like, oh, like, let's look into graduate school. So I definitely think that timing and balancing, making sure you know your timeline correctly, like working with somebody to plan everything out would be super helpful. But within my time off that entire year, I've worked many different jobs. I was a tutor for like 2 different organizations. I worked through the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, where I worked with transfer enrollment students, and then I also worked through the Welcome Center, where I showed people around campus. I did presentations for the university. I worked for nonprofit organizations, so I worked a lot of different part-time jobs. I was against working full-time in particular because I wanted to have some time to like really focus on myself and like have a breather away from the hustle and bustle of like that college life. Even though that ended up not happening because I worked so many different jobs, but I definitely, it's a learning process to really navigate. The good thing about my particular program is that for a lot of the science PhDs, you get fully funded. So I didn't really have to, I know Zuhair talked about having to fund part of her education. But for me, I actually get paid to go to graduate school. So I have a stipend that I can work in for a couple $1,000s to do work at the university. So all of my tuition is covered. Like I have healthcare benefits, dental benefits. So the only expense that I would have to be paying is the cost of living, which is what the stipend would barely cover for me. So it's really exciting, I guess. That's.
Congratulations, Rudra.
Thank you so much. In terms of my application process, I think like some of the other.
You muted yourself, Rudra.
In terms of some of the other schools that I was looking at, so I applied very scarcely, but I applied to each different type of school. So I got into a few, some Ivy League schools. I got into like a few public schools here in the city, private schools, like I've gotten into NYU, the CUNY system. But really, I think one of the driving factors for me to choose USC was I wanted to go to the other coast because I think it gives me the opportunity to kind of be more independent and be away from my family because I spent 4 years for college with my family. But yeah, that's it.
So I have a question for all 3 of the students who are starting in the fall. Are your classes going to be in person? Because you're going in different states, Florida, New Jersey, and California. Oh, wow. This question is going to be, after reading the news this morning, this question is going to have a different response, I'm sure. Are your classes in person? Are they hybrid? Are they online? I know the answer for Rudra, I think, but I think it's a good thing to ask. Who would like to, well, Rudra, you're unmuted, so you get to go first.
Okay, yeah, so for me, my school hasn't really said anything yet. They're like, oh, just remain nimble, whatever that means. Up until I guess next week, they're gonna like release information. But I kind of know, I've like looked through the registrar and I saw that all the classes for graduate school are offered online. So I think it's gonna be online. The in-person component would be like once I'm doing my research with the faculty members, because the first year for the science degree is doing rotations with different faculty members to figure out what area of research you want to do. So I guess in terms of, it's kind of like a combined, like a hybrid program, but all the like classes, like where you have to take notes and take tests, are going to be online.
Rudra, I have a quick question. Did they say, because you're going to go into
chemical biology?
Yeah. Did they talk about how they're going to handle the advanced labs? Now I'm picking your brain. I'm doing my own research here, you know.
Yeah. So I think the labs are open, similar to what PACE is doing. So PACE just opened up their research labs. So we are going to be in person. You have to be in person for that.
Yeah.
But the class parts, we're actually learning. I'm afraid to do the online classes myself. But
great. Marquise, what about your classes?
As the new epicenter of the virus, we will be having remote classes in Florida.
Yeah, you follow the epicenter, don't you? First you were in New York, now you're in Florida.
You're following the trouble.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
And work is going to be online. So I'm just going to be in my paid apartment, just sign my lease, working at home.
Congratulations. What about you, Zuhair?
My classes are going to be hybrid. So as of right now, the classes that I've registered for are all in person. But I met with my academic advisor, and she said that she's meeting with each of the professors in the department so that they can like figure out what weeks they want to make it online and what weeks are they going to make class in person, because they're trying to minimize student capacity on campus. But I don't know how they're going to do that in the Bronx on that big campus.
Right. Okay, so I want to kind of open this up to students. There are a lot of questions. Unfortunately, I know the three of you really well, so I don't want to, it's like spoilers for me. I just want to tell things. But especially Diana, you're thinking about going into biology. I hope you have questions. For all of you, if you have questions, now's the time to ask.
Well, while you're thinking about a question, I did want to follow up a little bit on the GAs and the funding and things. When you're looking at programs, obviously the graduate assistantships are something you should be looking for. Immediately. We talked about the literacy and watching your loans and things, but also the other thing to look at is to look at the return on the investment of the program you're going into. There are going to be some programs where you're going to be much more cautious, in terms of your expenditures, because your return. I mean, I always knew my return was going to be in the nonprofit arena. You know what I mean? I just, that was a given with me. So I, managed everything early, with my parents, on the undergraduate level very carefully. But there are some careers where I had mentioned like physician assistant, and I had mentioned nursing. There are a lot of especially in the healthcare areas, the returns are very good immediately after graduation, immediately after licensure and exams and things like that. And those are things where you look at it, you go, well, I'm gonna probably pay my loans back within a year or 2 years after getting out. If a PA, with night differential or weekends, you're gonna make $80,000-$90,000 a year, right out of a PA school. So, and in the biochemistry areas and research and things like that, there's more money to be had. So those are also the kinds of things that you have to, you kind of have to balance. So again, it was like, do your homework, and career services can help you with that. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, they've got great stuff on the website, and that really can help you even in terms of trying to look at your undergraduate major and what you want to do for graduate school, and sort of taking some of your strengths and weaknesses and sort of utilizing them, for a profitable career. Anyway, so that was it. So now I'm ready for questions.
One thing while we're waiting for questions, does anybody have a question? Anybody? Dante, go ahead.
I wanted to know if anybody here changed their major to something that would be more profitable.
So in other words, did somebody start out in a major and then change it because they thought they would make more money after they graduate? Okay.
I went from marketing, which I guess in the general scheme is you're going to be working a lot of hours. And in the beginning, you won't make as much in terms of I guess how much you're working. But then I changed to HR because I knew if I was going to go into HR, then I was going to make a lot of money. And everyone is always hiring in HR because every company has an HR department. So I knew I was going to make money regardless, but I was I know I'm also going to be putting in a lot of work. So what type of work do I want to be, I guess, putting in?
That's a good point. Now, question?
One thing that I recognized, and something that a lot of my mentors took have told me is that it's really important to also pick a major that offers like versatility. I know a lot of people, when you think of science, like you're like, oh, you're going into like the science field. But a lot of the people who my mentors have connected me to, like for example, one of my mentors that helped me apply to USC, she has her PhD in science, but she's working in the law field. So you have to like also look at how different majors can provide you options, not just like focusing on one particular field as well, if that makes sense.
I think that is a valid. You know.
No, well, she.
You know, one thing I want to, I'm just trying, is I'm sitting here and I'll find it and I'll send it to everybody during the break, is people with, as you get up, and there's something really important to understand, the higher level degree, regardless, is going to give you both job stability and earning over your lifetime. So what you can earn over your lifetime will increase the amount based on your degree. The difference between a high school and a bachelor's degree is huge. The difference between a bachelor's and a master's, and then a bachelor's and a PhD, that it does go up incrementally over time. One thing I do want to do when I talk about this, because we do have one student, we've had a lot of students who take gap years. And a lot of times students plan a gap year and they say, I'm going to get a job and I'm going to earn money. And I remember one student really sitting and having a conversation with Chad and I, and he was like, I'm taking a gap year and my plan is to take a gap year. I'm going to make I'm going to live at home. I'm going to make $60,000 to $70,000 during the year. And then I'm going to start graduate school and it's all going to go very smoothly. And you know, that I think the road was a little bumpier. It wasn't as smooth as that, but you know, so plan for, like, look, the coronavirus has all thrown a wrench in our lives. Plan for that wrench every step of the way. If the plan you're coming up with seems really smooth, it may be a little bit too smooth. That would be my advice with that. The other thing, and you know, we talked about funding, and the other thing, I will point out a couple things. GREs, yes, you can practice them. A couple things with the GREs, I think, Rudra, you took the chemistry area specific, correct? You didn't take the regular GREs, did you?
I took both. I failed the chemistry one, but I didn't send them my score. And the regular one I did very average on, so.
Okay. So
they don't care about the GRE. They don't care. Well, it's a formality.
That depends.
It depends on the school. Yeah. Some things to understand about the GREs as they stand right now. Marquise and Zuhair, you took the LSAT, Zuhair, correct? Did you take you took both of them?
I took both, yeah.
Okay, and Marquise, you took the regular GREs or did you? Okay.
Once I didn't have to take it. I looked for schools who did not really, I guess, ask for it. But yeah, I was very average. You reminded me, Ken.
Okay, so a couple things about GREs. The things with math, the math is usually through geometry, trigonometry. They're not going to give you Calc 2 on the GREs. So understand, you know, and this is one of the things, I've worked with students who are taking GREs for years. One of the things that when they get to their junior or senior year and they're practicing the GREs, they have to go back and relearn geometry. So you could start practicing your GREs now. The other thing is vocabulary. Practice your vocabulary. You can download GRE apps now and you can start practicing your vocabulary. And it won't kill you. A good vocabulary is always a good thing to have. And you can take practice exams. Also, as SSS students, you should look for waivers for the GREs, for graduate school applications. TRIO students can get waivers for the graduate school applications. Graduate schools, I think, Diana, you were talking about going to medical school of some kind. I think you said you wanted to do OBGYN, correct? Was that you?
No, I think that was Jamita.
Jamita, was that you?
Yeah.
Okay. If you're thinking something like that, that's going to be planning, but you're going to have to apply to a lot of schools, and those are expensive. So,
Okay.
well, here's the thing: as an SSS student, if you get all the stuff, you can apply for waivers, but you have to make sure you've asked for that. And Susan, you're going to say something.
Right, fee waivers, not exam waivers, fee waivers, right?
Well, you can get SSS students can get discounts and exam waivers, yeah.
Well, no, I'm saying for the fee, for the exam fees, but not the exam itself. You got to take
No.
the exam. Yeah, yeah.
You still have to take the exam. Oh, yeah. But for your applications, you can get, wouldn't it be lovely? Those are some of those things you can keep in mind. Is if you're saying, I'm not going to go because the applications are too expensive, you can get waivers. Same with the GREs. You can practice stuff. If you have that dream, you can work on it, and we will be there to help you.
Yeah.
And the other thing is to take criticism. It's not personal. It doesn't mean if somebody gives you a harsh criticism, it's not because they don't care about you or because they dislike you. It's because they see your potential.
Yeah.
And they know how hard you can take it.
Yeah. That reminds me, Ken, one of the things you asked me to talk about was references, and I kind of got carried away. So that was a good segue. In the preparation, every college, grad school application is going to ask you for references. And sometimes they'll specify whether they want academic references, professional references. It really depends upon the master's degree that you're going for. I think, it's a good idea to start cultivating your references maybe a year or two ahead of the application process. Faculty member, you should have some faculty members, in case of someone going into something like higher ed, having, an administrator that you've worked closely with helps. Your references, though, need to be related. And they need to be from people who can vouch for your ability to be successful as a graduate student and in the program of your choice. So, quite frankly, a reference from a colleague is not what you want to be giving. It should be a supervisor, a faculty member, something like that. But as I said, cultivate them early. As somebody who's written many, many references over the years for students, what I always ask a student to provide me with is with their resume when they've asked me to write the reference. Because sometimes the student will come into me and I haven't worked closely with them for a year or 2 years. I'm not saying I don't remember them, I do, but I don't really remember that we actually ran the spring luncheon in the spring of, I don't want to tell you how many years ago I did that with students. But anyway, like in the 70s and the 80s, you're at Pace. But and things, but those kinds of things, just because, reference wants to be specific and they want to be correct. And what I say and what I want to say in my reference for student, I want it to jibe with what you might have on your resume. So that, it's everything, I want to help you. If I'm agreeing to do a reference, I want to be a help and things. So it's always good to provide some information and a little bit about what you're looking to do, with that graduate program and things. It really helps for them, for your reference, to write a much better recommendation for you. Talk to them before you list them as a reference. That's really important. Nobody wants to get something out of the blue that they have 2 days and then only 2 days to provide it on top of it all. Give them adequate notice. And then when you're all done, don't forget to say thank you. And then when you're admitted and maybe you get started, that's a really good time to go back to your reference, because this is also keeping your network open and going. Go back and let them know what's going on. You're having a good term, things are going really well. Thank you so much. Part of the reason I'm here is because of you, right? Okay, so anyway, so I think I got all the points for the good reference. in that, Kim? Okay.
I think you did. Now, one question, and we're almost done. We'll take our break, but I would like the alumni, one thing that you wish you had been told that somebody had told you, or even better, let me rephrase this. If you could go back and talk to your pre-freshman self, what one piece of advice would you give yourself?
Academics, sorry, but take my academics very more seriously, I guess. I would just say, because even if you're going to grad school or a job, you want to feel fulfilled after that. You don't want to say, oh, well, I did the bare minimum, but actually apply yourselves. You're all here, all very smart. And sometimes it's not just about smart, but it's about just being diligent. So I would just say, take your GPA as seriously as you can, but also have fun. You know, it's not always going to be.
That's rule number one for sure.
Okay, Rudra, you were going to throw something in?
I was going to say just read more, read for fun. That's one thing that I never did, and I still don't do it. I don't know why, but there's so much benefits. Your ability to read quick, it'll just change your vocabulary, the way you carry yourself, everything. I think if I had read more, studying for the GRE would have been so much easier. English classes, I would have gotten all A's in my English classes. Just reading is
fundamental.
Fun, right? Yeah.
Okay, so it's funny because you guys are laughing because you see it on Drag Race where RuPaul says reading is fundamental, but it goes back. There were a set of commercials in the 70s. There was a program called Riff, and it was reading is fundamental. So go ahead, Sarah.
The one thing I would say is take a break, because I was always left, right, up and down, side to side. I would say take a break. It's okay.
It's okay to take a break.
Yeah.
So, any questions before we let you go? And other than a big thank you to Susan, Marquise, Zuhair, and Rudra.